Okay, welcome to another edition of the Edlow podcast. I am your host, Josh Edlow. As always, I'm supposed to tell you to subscribe. That's what all the podcasters tell me is the hip thing to do. So, subscribe to the podcast. I am very, very excited about this one. In wrestling, we call it mark out moments, and I am certainly marking out right now because I get an opportunity to talk to one of my all-time favorites. I am here with Abdullah the Butcher. Mr. Butcher, Abdullah,
Yes,
thank you for coming on the podcast and indulging me. This is a really exciting one for me. I remember watching,
I'm glad to be on it.
yeah, well, thank you. And I remember watching you come out. It was probably an old, I don't know if it's NWA at that time or WCW. It was Jim Crockett era, and boy, you came out and you were a sight to be seen. I mean, 500 pounds. You were not easily moved. You came out with a fork. You were bleeding all the time. You were one of the first hardcore wrestlers.
Thank you.
And so I had your action figure, which was really hard to find because you weren't a WWF guy. And,
Right.
and here in California, where I was, those things were fine. There was you and Carlos Colon. I remember I got them
Right.
both. And so thank you for coming on. And what I want to do first is ask you,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Tell me, where does wrestling start for Abdullah the Butcher? Where were you and how did it come about?
Well, number one, I was at the Windsor Arena in Windsor, Ontario, and there was the guy who used to be in charge of the arena was Cito Martinello.
Hmm.
And I used to go down there and I used to do karate and stuff like that. And he said, Abdullah, no, he said, Larry, 'cause I never had no wrestling name then. He said, Larry, he says, I'm going to introduce you to Jack Britton, who's the promoter for the midgets, and he's got a place over in Detroit, Michigan. And so he introduced them to me, and Jack Britton came into the arena, and he says, walked over to me. He says, "Hey, like I hear that you're such and such. How would you like to be a wrestler?" I said, "Well, I wasn't quite sure." And he says, "What I'm going to do, I'm going to come tomorrow." And he had a big long Cadillac. He says, "I'm going to come tomorrow and take you to Detroit, Michigan, because that's where his office was at." And in his office, he had a partner named uh, I can't think of the guy's name, Bert Ruby. That was his partner. And so the next day, he came, he picked me up, took me over to Detroit, and we went up the stairs, and that's where he had his office. Right across the street, there was a place where they made Vernors, like Vernors, drink,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was on Woodward Avenue. So I got up there, and he asked me to work to get in the ring with this guy. So I got in the ring with this guy. His name was I can't think of his name, but he was supposed to have been uh, whatever. So he said, "Do something." So I got into the ring and I started going like that, and like he was watching me, and I was doing my karate like that, and I'd be giving him like that the headbutts. I started biting him and stuff like that, and Bert Ruby said to Jack Britton, "He's a natural."
Yeah.
That's what he said. He's a natural, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, they asked me, "Where did you learn this from?" I said, "Well, I used to go to the movies. I used to watch Tarzan, right?"
Right. Right.
And I said I used to watch of the Africans, doing the yellow and stuff like that, and I learned from them like biting and doing all this stuff. Then I used to watch like the Indians, fighting and stuff like that. I learned from the movies,
Yeah.
and I learned everything. Then I learned how to really make the wrestling business, because the business was just wrestling. They'd grab a hold and stuff like that. So my
Sure.
thing was, well, let me do something. So I used to beat my head up against the post, like that. I would take a stick or if somebody threw something at me, I'd grab it and start beating them in the head, and the people go crazy.
Right.
So they wanted something different,
Yeah.
and that's what I done. I
Yeah.
changed everything around.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, that's what's so cool about you is you were the first one. I remember the first time I saw you bring that fork into the ring and start stabbing people with a fork, and I was just I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, oh my goodness, and you're really the precursor. There you go, exactly. You're the precursor to guys like Cactus Jack and Terry Funk and all these guys who started getting ECW. I mean, you were kind of the guy. Where did the fork come from?
Let me say something.
Yeah.
I had a manager named Honest John, right? When I say honest, he was honest, but he is a thing. And he threw a fork into the ring. No, somebody threw the fork into the ring, and he grabbed it and handed it to me. I started using it. The people went crazy, right? Then I started doing everything with the fork. If the people threw in a cup, if they threw in a glass, whatever they threw in, I'd pick it up and use it. You understand? And one time I was in Boston, and I was wrestling, and I got carried away. I was beating on the guy. The guy was up there screaming and hollering, and the police came and took me out. In Boston, they took me out like that. So I was going, yeah, I'm a chia. I was hollering, yeah, I'm a fee, like that. And they asked me, Rod Fenton, who was doing Boston, he said to me, what are you saying? I said, I don't know. I'm making all this stuff up, but the people are eating it up. They love it. You understand?
Yeah.
And one time, I took my little carpet and I put it on in the ring, and I started praying. And some guy howled out, "You're praying the wrong way. Go to the other side." I mean, so there was everything. I changed the wrestling. One time, if you don't mind me saying this, Gordon Soley, for instance, I was on the TV and I came up with a raw fish. I bought a whole fish on the thing, and I was in there, and Gordon Soley said, "Damn, Abdullah, at least you could have bought a ripe one in there instead of a rotten one, right?" And then one time he was reading his schedule, what was going on, and I grabbed the schedule out of his hand, and I started eating it. "You son of a bitch!" He said, "I only got one thing." I used to do all that crazy stuff on the TV. I'd beat my head up against the thing. I'd grab a garbage can, beat my head. Anything where the people would eat it up. Then the people would say, "That is real wrestling," and the people believed it and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Was there were there any influences to what you were doing? Did you see someone else doing this and go, that is kind of the style I want to have, or did you just come up with it all on your own?
I changed everything. I changed. Who else had a fork?
Yeah, nobody. I never seen it. That's
Right. Who else had what do you call it? A fork or a bottom. I'd break the bottom and say, "Yay, yay," right? And the people would eat it up. I took anything what they threw into the ring, that's what I used. You understand?
Yeah, so I have some experience in wrestling. Obviously, I didn't do what you do. I do some independent wrestling here and there, and
Can't hear you.
I said I do a little bit of independent wrestling, so I'm a little familiar with what you do. Not obviously on the same scale as you, but there are some guys out there when you see their name on the schedule when you're looking down and you go, okay, match this one. I'm working this guy, you're like, okay, this is going to be easy. This is going to be a night off. Were you the guy when they saw, oh man, I got Abdullah, were they like, oh man, this is going to be, I'm going to be in for a ride? Or did you think the guys liked working you? What did you think?
Number one, I would go to the guy and say, I have to go over on you. I have to kill you. I got to do everything to get over. You understand? If you don't want to do it, tell me, and I'll go tell the promoter, and we'll get somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
a lot of them would say, "Oh no, we'll do it, but just let me do a little something."
Right.
You
Yeah.
understand? But the average job man, a job man is a guy who does the job.
Sure.
They could beat half of the wrestlers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Just because they were putting you over, they could fight too. But
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
They wanted to be a wrestler and be on TV.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that it's interesting when you're a big guy. Like, I mean, you were big. How tall are you?
6.
6 foot. So you're 6 foot, 500 pounds. That's how you're built. I mean, when you're that big, you can't really be giving them much, because you can't be giving your job guy much because you gotta, it wouldn't look believable. You have to just murder the guy.
But he just wanted to have something like where he tried to fight me. He tried to beat me up.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes you would eat a guy up, you understand? Then you say, okay, come back on me.
Mm-hmm.
Make your little comeback, then I would kill him.
Right.
You
Right.
see? So this business, it's like when people ask me about wrestling, I says, I am an entertainer.
Yeah.
And I used to say, you have what? When you go to a circus, you want to see the big fat guys. You want to see the clowns. You want to see everything, right?
Sure.
And that's what wrestling really is. See?
Yeah.
But now you have guys who are what? They're all muscle guys.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Like you had guys like Calhoun, Tex McKenzie, Larry Mo, all these guys. Fred Curry. You remember Fred Curry?
I don't remember him. I remember Haystacks Calhoun. I don't remember that.
Yeah, you see, all these guys they were wrestlers. A lot of guys who go out there, and one time, Jim Barnett said to me, Abdullah, what's wrong with the people? I said, Jim, let me tell you something. Go sit by the ring. When one guy throws a drop kick, the people go, ooh. When the second guy comes out the wrestler, he's going to try to do the same thing. And the people go, oh. Everybody tries to copy everybody. You understand?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Ricky Cortez?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Now, Ricky Cortez was a big Mexican guy. When I say big, he was big, like that. And he got up there, he said to me, Abdullah, listen, I'm bigger than you and I look like this. Now let's go there and have a match. I said, no problem. You see? And it's what you make out of the wrestling. You can take anybody and wrestle them and grab a hold, but the people want violence. Today, that's all they want is violence. Everything that goes on is violence.
Yeah, yeah.
See?
Well, real quick before we go on, because one of the things that we talked about when we set this up was that you have a GoFundMe going out there. I'm going to put it out there right now.
Yes, sir.
Abdullah has been dealing with some legal issues, and we've talked a little bit about them off air. We won't go into what they are, but he has a couple of legal issues stemming from a number of things that have gone on in his life. But one of the things that's difficult, and I know this as an attorney, is when you have someone like, and we can talk about this a little bit, Abdullah. You don't know, you can't read or write. You did your traditional education, up until about second or third grade, after which you went to some special education schools and a trade school to learn cabinetry work, but ultimately dropped out. And that's how you found wrestling and created an amazing career for yourself. But because of some of these issues, there's a GoFundMe out there to help him with some of his legal expenses, which has done has helped some. So occasionally, as we're going through this, we're gonna flash the GoFundMe site on the page, and we'll put it in the description as well if you're listening to this and you're not watching the video, so that way you can help contribute, because he definitely needs the help. But like I said, we're not going to go into what those legal issues are, because that's not what this podcast is about. But it's definitely something that we wanted to make sure everybody knows about.
Thank you, Brody.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you too, going back to the wrestling. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about you, and I think this is important, is that you were a special attraction. You didn't stay in a certain area or on a certain TV show or certain territory too long. So when you showed up, I mean, the wrestling people now, they don't understand what it was like when we were kids. There was not 3 hours of Raw and 2 hours of SmackDown every single week. You had an hour of Superstars, and you had an hour of the Saturday show for WCW, where it was guys like you killing local talent, jobbers, to promote the shows.
Right.
And so when you came on, it was exciting. Was it a conscious effort for you to be kind of a journeyman in that way and a special attraction, as opposed to staying in one space?
Say that again, please.
Yeah, was it kind of something you thought about yourself? Like, did you purposely kind of jump around, or was that just kind of the way your character worked?
Well, my thing was this: anytime who was ever on top, I made sure that got more heat, that I would be on top the next time when I came back.
Sure.
That was my thing. My thing was, if you're on top, Hogan was in Japan, and when we tore the house down, me and Hogan, right? Hogan said to me, and when we were in Japan, me and Hogan sold out every place. He said, Abdullah, I'm going to talk to Vince McMahon, and I'm going to try to bring you in just to wrestle me, right?
Yeah, right.
He went back and talked to him, whatever, and they says, oh, he's going to do this, he's going to do this, and stuff like that, and they never brought me in.
Man, that would have been awesome, because you would have been so good in that. There was that era where Hogan, it was like every wrestler he wrestled was bigger. It started with like Big John Studd, and then King Kong Bundy, finally Andre the Giant. You would have been perfect right in there if he working that body slam.
Right.
It would have been a lot of fun. But you worked Hogan in Japan.
I worked with him in Japan, sold everything out. Every building was sold out.
Wow.
The big buildings. I'm talking about the big buildings.
Where was this? Do you know where this was in Hogan's era in Hulkamania? I mean, was this before he was the WWF champion, or was this while he was WWF champion?
Well, like he was wrestling like in New York.
Okay, so he was working for Vince Jr. then.
Yeah, but the main part about it, me and Andre the Giant went into Puerto Rico and sold it out.
Well, yeah, no, but that's interesting. So you worked a program with Hogan in Japan and Andre the Giant in Puerto Rico.
Yes, Andre the Giant in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And we sold out.
Do you have any idea how much I would love to see those matches? I don't know if they're on YouTube or anything. Those are matches that I would have loved to have seen you in, because all the matches I saw you in, you were kind of in matches with guys like Cactus Jack and Bruiser Brody. And
great wrestler. Bruiser Brody was a great wrestler. And I wish if he was here, me and Brody would probably have a territory. You understand? Yeah. I'm serious. Because Cactus Jack was a hell of a wrestler. He could do anything. He'd go to the top of the stairs and roll all the way down. And you'd think that he was dead.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
But guys like him, guys like Terry Funk, guys like Dory Funk, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
These guys were professional wrestlers. They knew how to get it on. You
Mm-hmm.
understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see Terry Funk bleeding from the arm. You see him bleeding from the leg. You see him bleeding from the ear.
Mm-hmm.
Who could really touch Terry Funk?
Oh, nobody.
See,
He was one of the greatest of all time.
he was he was a great, great wrestler, and he knew what the people wanted. He knew
Mm-hmm.
what they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, and
Yeah.
every time we went to Tokyo, we sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out.
Yeah.
See,
Did you have kind of like a favorite opponent, a guy that you always loved working?
well, I'm not going to say that, but the main part about it, every guy that I work with, we drew money together
Yeah.
because they knew what I wanted, and they knew that let's build this house so we can bring it back.
Sure.
You see,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. Did you have anybody that you thought? Well, who did some of these guys? They always talk about their favorite travel companions. Did you always travel on your own, or did you have somebody that was kind of a friend that you used to travel with all the time?
Well, I had to have somebody to drive me around
Mm.
because I could not read the signs,
Mm.
and I always told the promoters that I do not have, you understand,
Mm-hmm.
a license.
Mm.
So you got to make sure that the guys drive me around to certain to the arenas or wherever I'm going. But
Sure.
that was it.
Okay. Was there anyone in particular that you always you wanted to have with you the most, like you enjoyed working with,
I love to have
traveling?
Cactus Jack
Uh huh.
because Cactus Jack did not do that freaky stuff like smoking and drugs and stuff like that. He was a
Sure.
clear guy, and I like Cactus Jack. One day we were driving down the highway, and he had like a convertible, or a
Mm-hmm.
little convertible, and me and him was sitting in it, and I said, "Cactus Jack, please put up the top." He said, "It won't go up." And it was cold. When I say
Uh-huh.
cold, it was cold. And
Sure.
the rain was coming down. And every time that the truck drivers drove by us, they went, bah, bah. They said, "Look at those crazy idiots down there."
Yeah.
And that was it. But
Yeah.
have you ever heard of Maurice Bashan?
No, I don't think I have.
Maurice Bashan was short,
Okay.
but he was tough.
Hmm.
Nobody could beat him. He was from Montreal.
Hmm.
Maurice Bashan.
Hmm.
Remember that name?
I
He was a
will.
tough wrestler.
I'm gonna look him up as soon as we're done here.
Please
Yeah.
do that. And
Yeah.
Johnny Rougeau came to me and said, came to Maurice, would you do me a favor? Would you get him over?
Hmm.
And Maurice said, yeah, there's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
He called me to the side, kid.
Mm-hmm.
He says, when the time's right, I'll do this to you. You do this. You give me that
Mm-hmm.
and hit me with the elbow. But when you hit me with the elbow, 1, 2, 3, don't come back and start stomping on me the way you stomp on the other guys. I said, Maurice, no problem.
Yeah.
But Maurice was a tough, tough wrestler.
Yeah.
Could shoot
Man.
with anybody.
Hmm.
And nobody messed with him. Nobody. What he said goes.
Hmm. Did you ever have a chance to work Ric Flair?
Ric Flair, it's Ric Flair. It's a long story,
Okay.
but Ric Flair, in my opinion, is a good wrestler. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of good stuff, but he's a great wrestler.
Yeah. But you guys never worked together in the ring. You guys never had matches together.
No.
Okay. Was there some sort of heat there, or did he not think did it just not work between the two of you the way you guys' shows
Well,
went?
I'm not going to say that um, he had his different style and I had my different style. You understand?
Yeah.
We could have made a lot of money together. You understand?
Yeah.
But nobody booked it. Nobody ever booked that match. I wrestled Jack Briscoe in Australia.
Yeah.
We tore the matches down.
Yeah.
And he was the champion at that time.
Right.
I wrestled Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah. How did that go? How did those
great,
matches go?
Great. Dusty Rhodes was a good promoter. I mean, a good promoter, and he could really wrestle. And he's the one who called the shots. But the main part about it, Dusty Rhodes made a matchup with me and one of the brothers. I can't think of his name. Anyways, it was the electric chair match. Have you ever seen that?
You mean the Chamber of Horrors thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wanted to talk to you about that. I remember that match.
So what happened? Me and Cactus Jack, right? Cactus Jack was supposed to be like as soon as I get I can't think of the guy's name, but I'd have him like this here. I'm getting ready to put him into the.
It was Rick Steiner, right? The Steiner brothers.
We're getting ready to put him into the electric chair, right?
Yeah.
I looked at Cactus Jack, and the guy switched me around real fast. Cactus Jack pushed the button, and my hand went choop, choop, right?
Right.
And I'm up there burning. I'm supposed to be burning.
Sure.
All fires coming out, stuff like that. But Dusty Rhodes figured this is the way we can beat Abdullah the Butcher, and he won't know it.
Yeah.
Right? He won't know it, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyways, now here comes, I think there was about 12 guys in white uniforms coming down to carry me out, right?
Right.
So when they came to open the door, I kicked the door open and started beating them. Bam, 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 boom, boom. I'm knocking them on the floor, doing this here like that, there's something. And all the guy says, that made him 20 times stronger because he beat 12 guys, threw them all over the outside the ring, outside here and stuff like that. And what's his name? Bert Ruby, not Bert Ruby. Well, anyways, the promoter says, he's too sharp for you.
Yeah.
You thought that you were going to have these guys carry him out, right?
Yeah.
But it never happened.
Yeah. When you heard about that Chamber of Horrors match, were you when they told you the concept? How did you feel about it? Were you like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it," or were you kind of like, "This is kind of silly," or how did you feel about that?
No, it was something different.
Yeah.
And I said, I knew what they were trying to do. See, they couldn't get me on the ground 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
You see?
Sure.
So this way they figured, if we change it around, and they put him in the electric chair, the people go crazy.
Sure.
And when I was up there burning, like shaking,
Yeah.
Then when I seen the guys, but they didn't tell me the guys in the white coats were coming.
Right.
So I waited for them. When they opened up that damn door, I went on them. Bam, 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 threw them out and shit like. And that was it.
Yeah. What did Dusty say when you got to the back? Did he say anything to you? Did Dusty Rhodes say anything to you?
Dusty says, "Listen, my brother, that was a hell of a match, brother. We did it again."
Yeah.
That was it. But his brother, but his son is good too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them, Dustin and Cody, are both amazing.
Dustin, yes, they're good, really good.
Yeah. I just I took my kids down to see WrestleMania to watch Cody Rhodes wrestle Roman Reigns, and boy, they put on a clinic. It was great.
Oh yes, yes. Yes.
Yeah, they're good workers.
He's doing the stuff like what his his father done.
Yeah,
He's got the
yeah,
same routine, the same ideals, same everything.
yeah. One thing I think that's really impressive about Cody is that he's one of the guys. Nowadays it's really hard to kind of do what you did, and what I mean by that is, if a territory was not booking you the way you wanted, you went somewhere else, and that's hard to do because there's not a lot of places to go. But Cody Rhodes did. He left and he forged his own way and came back stronger. And it seems like that's something that you did yourself too. Did
But the main part about it, if Dustin, you understand,
mhm,
had the right people,
mhm.
he could pack everything.
Yeah,
He could pack everything.
yeah,
Even if I wrestled you,
mhm.
I could make you a superstar just by letting you do a certain things. You
Sure.
understand?
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
You can make anybody if you want to make them.
Hmm. Was there anyone that you feel responsible for making? Like, was there anyone that they asked, "Hey, Abdullah, I want you to make this guy a superstar"? Was there anyone in particular that you worked?
I made Tommy Rich.
Ah,
I
yeah.
made Tony Atlas.
Oh yeah.
I made a lot of guys. You understand?
Sure.
By letting them pick me up,
Hmm.
slamming me because I never let too many people slam me.
Sure.
You see? And that
Yeah.
was it.
Now, when you I got to imagine, like, I'm 6'7", I'm 280, and one of the things that a lot of the guys told me was they said you got to protect yourself because promoters are going to want to put put these little guys over on you, and you got to protect your character. Did you feel a need to protect yourself? Were there promoters who were like, "Hey, Abdullah, we want you to put this guy over," and you were
Oh
just
no,
like, "No."
no, because
Okay. Uh huh.
they knew that I was drawing and them money.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
understand?
Sure.
And that's what's wrong with. I mean, today the guys are making big money, but the
Sure.
main part about it, a lot of guys who were going on TV in those days, job men were getting $15
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
$10.
Yeah.
You
Right.
understand?
Sure.
I mean, the promoters made all the money. They
Mm-hmm.
paid certain guys. Don't get me wrong, but the
Mm-hmm.
main part about it, a lot of guys. That's why a lot of guys out there who were great workers, right,
Mm-hmm.
didn't make money,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of them are broke just like me.
Yeah.
Because and that's why I tell a lot of the kids stay in school, learn how
Yeah.
to read. If you don't know how to read, you understand, the
Sure.
promoters will beat you in the long
Yeah.
run.
Right. Did you do you attribute that? I mean, I know that the payouts back when you were working, I mean, you're selling at arenas, but the payouts aren't the same as they are now. Um, what do you attribute the financial issues to? Do you think it's just the payouts being low, or do you think it was not really understanding how to put
And
money away? What would you say is the reason why you mentioned you're broke? Is there a reason for that? Do you think it's just not understanding the money, or what do you think it was?
I couldn't read.
Yeah.
By
Hmm.
in those days, if I would have had uh, a lawyer,
Hmm.
I'd be way up there.
Sure.
But for me, just I can't read. You
Hmm.
didn't want to tell nobody that you couldn't read.
Right.
You understand? And that was
Yeah.
it.
Well, you're pretty open about it now. I mean, back then, were you kind of were you a little? Was that something that you were
I was
worried
shocked.
about?
I was nervous.
Yeah.
How can you tell guys that you can't read?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I used to walk into a restaurant and they would say, what would you like to have? And I'd go, me, me, uh, egg, egg. The lady
Hmm.
said, oh, you want eggs? Uh, bake, uh, bacon,
Hmm.
right? Toast.
Sure. Sure.
That's the way, even when I went to the airport, I could, if they asked me where I was going, I'd always have a piece of paper, going to Chicago or going to here or what that. I give it to
Yeah.
the people.
Hmm.
And one time, I went to the place at the counter, and I was going. They said, "Where are you going?" Uh, me, me, um, um, Chicago.
Hmm.
Then I take the paper and put it. One day that the manager came down, he said, "Abdullah, stop this shit, will you please? You can speak English. You can speak English, right?"
Yeah.
And I told the guy, I says, "Yeah, but my school is no good." He said, "Oh, they took care of it for me." And that was,
Got it. Yeah.
see?
Were you afraid that any of the other workers would be, would make fun of you or rib you about the fact that you couldn't read, or did generally the people who were close to wrestlers knew that?
Well, a lot of times they didn't know.
Mm.
You understand?
Sure.
They Because when it came time to read or something like that, you understand?
Hmm. Hmm.
I would, if we were in a restaurant or something like that, and they'd be taking the orders, right?
Right.
What are you eating? I said, "Oh, me, same."
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
pointed out that was it.
Yeah. Wow. So, as far as the wrestling goes, is there a favorite promotion or territory that you liked working?
Would I like to work? Let me tell you something. Stu Hart
Hmm.
was like a father to me. You
Oh,
understand?
yeah.
Stu Hart. And it's all of his. When I first went into Calgary, Alberta, Stu Hart says, "Ab, I heard a lot about you." He says, "But a lot of guys, they do this, they do that, but they're missing everything." I said, "Stu, give me 2 weeks. If I don't do something, you don't have to pay me nothing."
Hmm.
He said, "All right, Ab." I stayed there for 2 weeks, done my stuff, bam, 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 bam. Stu says, "Hey, you're a hell of a good bastard. You know how to work." And that was it. So
Nice. So
I,
were you a mainstay working up there then?
pardon?
You were a mainstay working up there with him?
Oh yeah. Then the promoter from Australia called Stu Hart and said, "We'd like to have Abdullah in Australia."
Mm-hmm.
And Stu Hart says, "Look, this guy's drawing me a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure that you send him back."
Mm-hmm.
And he came to me. He said, "This Jim Barnett wants you in Australia."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "But promise me that you'll come back." And after I done my little stuff there, I came back to Stu Hart. That
Yeah.
was it.
So
So
he was one of your favorites. What did you think about working WCW? Because you were there for a time. That's probably the biggest American promotion you'd worked at. What did you think about that?
WCW, that was what, Puerto Rico, right?
No, no. WCW is like Ric Flair, Sting, the TBS. It was on TV here in America. That's where you did the Chamber of Horrors match and all
Yeah,
that stuff
yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah,
Steiners.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you worked for them, did they give you a contract or was it just a pay per play deal where each show you got paid?
That's the way we got beat.
Mm.
You understand?
Uh huh.
There
Uh
was
huh.
no there was no contract. You
Mm.
understand?
Yeah.
If you went into the army, there was no contract.
Mm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
But when I was selling out the places, if I would have known, you see,
Sure.
that I could hold the promoters up and say, "Hey, oh no, 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 you got to pay me this, you got to pay." No, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just didn't know. Well, um, so where were your some of the more famous matches you had? One of the biggest feuds that you had was against Bruiser Brody, and we talked a little bit about him earlier. Where did most of those matches happen? Were they in Japan or elsewhere?
No, we wrestled in Puerto Rico. Me and Bruiser Brody. I wrestled in uh, Texas with him.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled Brody with what's his name, Fritz von Erich, in his territory. I
Mm-hmm.
wrestled Brody. Every place me and Brody won, we drew the houses. The people went crazy because Brody was crazy, I was crazy, and the people knew that when these two get together, somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
And that was it. See?
One of the things that's so noticeable about you, I mean, you can see it on the video here, is the scars on your head
Yes.
from all the bleeding. And you know, recently heard a podcast with I think it was Ric Flair. I'm not sure, but they were saying, "Hey, you don't have scars, even though you were bleeding every night." And he said he thought it was because he would cut himself from this on the side, whereas other guys like you and Dusty Rhodes would cut down. Is there a reason why you would do the down cut versus the side? Is it just that was better for you?
Because
For
my
your...
hands were faster.
Ah, uh-huh.
You see, if I done something, and the guy hit me in the head, I go, whoo! You see, my hands were fast.
I got it. Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
Some guys would go like this.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Mm-hmm.
But when I could stand up and do it, and you'll never know that I was doing it.
Sure.
See?
Yeah. There's some guys out there you can, if you know what you're looking for, you can see that what they're doing. But I never noticed it when I would watch your matches. You just all of a sudden would come up and start bleeding. Was there a point, because I mean you had a lot of scar tissue on your head? Was there a point where you didn't even have to cut anymore if someone just hit it good enough?
All the time.
Oh yeah. How often were you bleeding? Were you every night, or was it on special? Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes I would the ring post, I just and the people say, look at him, right?
Yeah.
And it'll pop open, boom, right?
Yeah.
I'd be or I grab a chair. He's crazy.
Yeah. Did you ever make it out to California to work for like big time wrestling back in the 70s and 80s or anything like that?
What territory was that? Who's the promoter?
It was Roy Shire.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wrestled up there, Roy Shire.
Yeah. And so, because I'm in Sacramento, and I know my dad used to tell me about times where he would go to the Memorial Auditorium here in Sacramento or the Cow Palace in San Francisco and see big time wrestling, and saw a lot of guys out here. Did you ever work a guy like Ray Stevens or Pat Patterson or any of those guys?
Pat Patterson, I wrestled, I think Bill Miller.
Okay.
You remember Bill Miller?
No, I've never heard of Bill Miller.
Well, they were two partners.
Okay.
I can't think of it. It's been so long.
Okay.
But the guy seen me working, and we went outside, and he said, "You're an entertainer. You know how to work. Don't do nothing for nobody on these TVs. Don't go down for nobody." And that was it.
Nice. Yeah, that seemed to be what was going on for you most of the time, and that people didn't want you going down, because then when you do, it's special. You know, that was the thing about you. I don't even remember anybody ever putting you off your feet. I mean, the closest thing I'd seen was that Chamber of Horrors match where they flipped you over and you got electrocuted. But other than that, I'd never seen anybody pin you.
I'll tell you, there was a lot of. When I came out of the electric chair, people was calling because they thought it was real. They thought it was real, right? They'd be calling, "Is he dead? Is he dead?"
Yeah.
Because the way I done it in the electric chair, it looked like that I was being executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You know, one of the guys that struck me, he's a little different than you, but there was always Kamala was one that
Kamala was a great wrestler. Kamala. You understand?
Yeah.
He was good. He was different.
Yeah. Did you ever work him at all?
Kamala? No, I don't think so. No.
Oh, that would have been a great one. Watch you guys go at it.
See?
That'd have been fun. So give me a story. What's one of your favorite stories from the road?
Pardon?
What's one of your favorite stories from the road? All the wrestlers I've talked to have great stories from the road. What's one that you can remember that you can share with listeners?
You mean of the wrestlers or?
Yeah, just something, a funny rib or something that happened that you find to be fun, anything like that.
Well, all the ribs came from Calgary, Alberta. That's
Oh
where
yeah.
all the ribs came from.
Oh yeah.
They would set some of the guys up and say, "Hey, this girl really likes you. She's waiting for you," right?
Uh-huh.
And you jump up there and knock on the door, and bam, 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 bam. Somebody say, "Who is it?" Right? They
Uh-huh.
say, "Oh, just a minute." And the guy would open up the door with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And the guy, there were so many gimmicks, plants in Stu Hart's territory that you shake a stick at. Archie Goldie.
Mhm.
Did you ever hear of Archie Goldie?
I've heard of him, yeah.
Archie Goldie was a great worker, but and then they'd always tell you go to Stu's dungeon. He had a dungeon where he would take you downstairs, right, and teach you.
Right.
And at the
Sure.
same time, he'd get you in a hold. He'd say, give up, you son of a bitch. And he'd be choking. Give up. The guy'd be like, sir, Stu Hart said, give up, holler. Right?
Yeah.
And the guy, and when Stu would let him go, he would run out the damn door. Right? Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's funny. You know, one of the things that I always thought, and I wished I could have come to Georgia and seen it, was you opened up a barbecue restaurant, and what spawned that? Did you just always enjoy barbecue, or was it just putting your name to it? How did that come about?
No, my thing was, I was driving down the street, and I looked at this empty building. I said, that would make a good restaurant. But I had crooks working for me.
No.
Thieves, my brother-in-law,
Hmm.
they were stealing from me.
I see.
You understand? That's why I say, if you put people in charge of your stuff when you're on the road
Yeah.
and they're stealing from you, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a story that unfortunately happens way too much. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's in wrestling or whether it's, music or anything like that, you get you start making some money, you try to help a friend out, the friend takes advantage of you, family takes advantage of you.
One time I was in Boston, and what was that? There was a guy, I can't think of his name, Jack Pfeffer. Jack Pfeffer.
Mhm.
And he was in Boston, and I was waiting for the building to open up. This is in the afternoon. And he came up to me and he says, I am the great Jack Pfeffer. I said, Yakashita Mamatokolo Mamati. Yakashita Mamatala. He said, you dumb son of a bitch, you don't know who I am, right? So when they opened up the office, anyways, the guy says, Abdullah, this is the great Jack Pfeffer, right? I didn't know Jack Pfeffer, but
Uh-huh.
he was the one who took a lot of the wrestlers and made names like Bobo Brazil, but he would give somebody else a name, Hobo Brazil, or Valentine or Valentino.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Valentine, I wrestled him many times. He was a great worker, and his son was a great worker.
Uh-huh. Which one are you talking about? Greg Valentine or Johnny Valentine?
Great
Greg?
Valentine.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a good one. I've met him a couple of times. A really, really interesting guy and a great worker.
Yes, great.
Yeah. How did you get the name Abdullah the Butcher?
Well, when Jack Britton said, Abdullah, we got to get you another name. He says, we're going to make you the great Zila Samara.
Mm.
He said there was another guy, a black guy. We made him the great Zila Samara, and he had this here cap on his head with a dress, another dress, like it seemed like you were selling ice cream or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the great Zila Samara. So after that, when I went to Vancouver, um, Harry Ayyett, who was in Seattle, Washington, and Rod Fenton, they were partners from Vancouver to thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wrestling somebody, and they got up there and I tore the house down. I pretty near caused a riot. I was chopping the guy, bam, bam, I hit him in the throat, stabbing him, stuff like that. The people started coming. So, anyways, when I go back to Vancouver, Rod Fenton says, my partner, Harry Ayyett, called me up and says, this guy's a natural. He's a natural. Plus, we could do good business with him. But at that time, Jerry Graham, remember the big
Sure.
Dr.
Yeah.
Jerry Graham?
Sure.
He was supposed to bring me down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Thing says, I'm gonna make him your manager. And I said, no. George Cannon. You ever hear of George Cannon? Crybaby
Yeah.
Cannon?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna make me he's gonna be my manager. I said, no. He said, no, I don't want him. You understand? Because we didn't know that you were coming, that he was driving you down here to wrestle in Seattle. He told the promoter that you were a good job man, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when they asked me to do the job, I said, you mean that they're bringing me all the way down here to do a job? So anyways, they got up there and they done the thing. And I got in the ring and they asked me, would you put this guy over? I said, yeah, okay, no problem. It was you ever hear of Downhill Jonathan? Big Downhill Jonathan.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
I got to ring with him. Bam, I'm doing this stuff. And I'm pretty near caused a riot. Harry Ayyett comes running down the ring. Tell Abdullah, take the fall. Take it. Right?
Right.
So I got up there. I got DQ'd. The people went crazy, put her at a riot. And then that's when I went back and Brad Fenton says, Crybaby Cannon is going to be, Jerry Graham is going to be your manager, but we got to get you another name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he got done with that, he says, now down here, there's a lot of Indians, right?
Mm-hmm.
From Sudan, Khartoum, Sudan.
Sure.
So we're going to say, Abdullah, my partner said you wrestle like a butcher.
Yeah.
Abdullah the Butcher. And that's where I got that name from.
And then they started calling you the Madman from Sudan.
Right. Then they said, where are you from? I said, Khartoum, Sudan, where the Blue Nile meets. I never seen any damn Blue Nile in my life, right? So anyways, after I've been in the business a while, then I started saying, they said, where are you from? I said, Khartoum, Sudan, where the Blue Nile meets, Windsor, Ontario.
Nice.
So
That's
then
awesome.
I'm using that, Windsor, Ontario.
Nice. That's
But
awesome.
I always put in there, Abdullah the Butcher from Sudan, Windsor, Ontario.
Nice. You know, okay, so we're coming up. You gave me, you were gracious enough to give me an hour, and I appreciate it. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions I ask everybody on these podcasts.
I can't hear you.
There's a couple of questions I want to ask you that I ask everyone on these podcasts, and they're kind of rhetorical questions. The first one being, what do you think is your biggest success in life?
I can't hear you.
What would you say is your biggest success in life?
My biggest success.
Success. Yeah.
Well, my biggest thing that I was a great entertainer,
Mm-hmm.
but I got shafted on the money. You understand?
Yeah.
And I'm 72 years old now. And I mean, excuse me, please, excuse me. I'm jumping back 10 years.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. You can pass for 72. It's okay. You can
yeah.
pass for 72.
So, anyways, I'm 82, and I never, and this is I never told my mother or my father that I loved them, right? But now, since that they're gone, in my room, I have a picture of my dad and my mother. And I look up there and sometimes I break down and say, Mom, Dad, I know I give you everything, but I never told you I love you. But now I tell you every night that I love you. I wish you were here, because my dad used to say, if you go out there and you can't make it, you can always come home.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
never, as long as I live, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I'm sure that meant a lot
That's
to you.
it.
That's awesome. What, here's another question I have for you as we're wrapping this up. You're 82. You could pass for 62, quite frankly. You look great.
Thank
You look
you.
great. But at some point, you're gonna pass away, and there's gonna be a funeral.
What?
Someday you're gonna pass away.
Oh,
right?
no.
No.
I'm not going to pass away until Mrs. Malika teaches me how to read.
Yeah. Oh, you're learning. You're learning now.
Yeah.
I'm learning. You understand?
Those are the
And,
books.
and a lot of things, certain things, I can still open these things up, and a lot of the words I can't read.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have me in a place and say you're going to give me $1 million if you could spell this certain word. I couldn't spell it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Sure.
And that's on my mother and my father. Even from this day, I can't read.
Yeah.
But when the people used to come to me for my autograph, I'd go, Yakashita Mamatolo, right?
Sure.
Because at that time, I didn't know how to write Abdullah the Butcher. It took me so long to learn how to write Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah.
Then I started signing my name, Abdullah the Butcher.
Nice.
You understand?
Yeah, and I'm sure you're doing a lot of that now. I know you go on WrestleCon circuits and go to wrestling conventions and sign.
And a lot of times, and I'm not saying this to be saying it, if it wasn't for this lady, Mrs. Malika, she does a lot of things for me. She gets all my fans. She types everything down. She gets all my contracts, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I could not do it. You understand? Wow. And that's why a lot of people talk a lot of shit. But if it wasn't for this lady here, you understand? I wouldn't be on this TV now. I wouldn't be on it. You understand?
Yeah. Well, and I got to tell you, as somebody who's dealt with her, in setting this up, because I called and she answered and I spoke with you and her. She's been nothing but great. I mean, if anybody ever calls to try to book you or book you for an convention or a podcast, I mean, the experience was really good. I mean, it was really easy. We had easy to work with.
She sticks up for me 100%.
Yeah.
She takes me down to the courthouse.
Yeah.
To find out certain papers, right?
Sure.
Because I could never go down there and say, this house or that. No, because I couldn't read the name.
Sure. Yeah.
It took me, when I bought this house here, it took me about a good 5 months or 6 months to learn. I used to have a taxi driver to drive me out to the house.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they say, where you live? I say, oh, go this way, that way. But now I say, I read, I can spell 1310, right?
Don't put
You
your
see?
address out there.
Okay, but the main part
Yeah.
about it, I can do certain things, you understand, what I couldn't do before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
that's
if it wasn't for her, everybody else ripped me off. But if it wasn't for her, she goes to the bank for me.
Yeah.
She does a lot.
The ATM.
I mean, the ATM,
yeah.
I don't even know how to work that.
Yeah. Well,
Thank-
that's awesome. I'm glad you have somebody in your life to help you with that.
Yeah.
You know, I got to tell you, it's been an honor. We're at the hour. I want to respect your time. You said you'd give me an hour. When you give most people, you don't give them that much time. So I really appreciate it. I hope you understand. I'm sure there's a lot of people just like me. I would say that my childhood was good. I had good parents, but there were real rough times. I won't go into it all in this, but and wrestling was something that I was able to watch that kind of took that away, took the trouble stuff away. I could kind of forget about it. My dad and my aunt and different people took me to wrestling events all the time as a way to kind of escape that. And you were a big part of that. You were somebody who I very much remember.
Thank you.
And so I hope you understand that at this point in your life, I know you're 82. I hope you understand that there's a lot of people out there that you've really affected for the good, and it means a lot, and it means a lot to me that you were willing to come on my little podcast and indulge me in kind of going down a trip down memory lane with you. And certainly, I'm going to keep your contact information. Let's have you back. Hopefully, your legal troubles
Yes.
will go away, and when they do, we can have you on again and talk more. And
Yes. I appreciate it.
And so thank you, and of course for everybody.
Excuse me for a minute, sir. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's people like you and my fans who made Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah.
I didn't just make myself. It was the fans out there, people like you understand, who built me up, who put me on their TV. But the main part about it, and I don't want you to get pissed off at me, but can you send me the balance of the $10,000 check?
Yes. Well. Yeah.
You can't talk. You can't talk.
Well, I very much appreciate you. It's been good to get to know you. No, yeah, I know you're messing with me, and I appreciate that. No, I got to tell you though, and I mean that this. As an attorney, I told you, I promised you we wouldn't go into your legal issues on the podcast, and we won't. But
Thank you.
I very much, as an attorney, hearing, we had an offline conversation about kind of what you were going through, and it's a struggle. It was a struggle, and you definitely need representation. So I just say that just so that way people who know, I've been as we've been talking, flashing the GoFundMe on here. It'll be in the tagline and the description of on all my different social medias and stuff like that, so that people know where they can go to help, because it's definitely something. As an attorney, I can tell you, I've seen people walk into court and try to represent themselves without representation because they're in the same situation that you are, and it never goes well. And
Right.
so for people out there, if you have some money you want to donate to a cause, especially the fans who are listening, Abdullah the Butcher gave us his entire life entertaining us. The least we could do is throw some money your way to help you in your time of need. So
Plus, I want to say one thing. Can you say something to Mrs. Malika by helping me out, please?
No, that's all right. I don't need that.
Say
Yeah.
something.
No.
Just say something for her.
No, I don't need that.
She don't
Well,
need that.
yeah, well, I can just tell you, Miss Malika has been I'll say this, I've promoted wrestling matches before, and I've worked with a lot of names, out there of your time frame and later, and I can tell you that dealing with Miss Malika was absolutely 100% one of the better experiences I've had dealing with anybody
Thank you.
who worked in wrestling. As someone who's wrestled and also promoted, when we talked, I could tell you're old school. Like, you dealt with promoters before. I could tell because you're like, I don't know who this guy is, and I'm going to be real careful with him. And I know that you've dealt with that a lot.
Right.
But on the other side, I dealt with that too. There's a lot of guys out there where if you threw some money their way before they actually got on the plane, they wouldn't end up on the plane. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? And so, but Malika was so good about everything, and just we came up to an agreement to make this work, and everybody held their side, and she was very helpful. I know we had some technical difficulties figuring out how to get you on on here
That's
for a
right.
minute, and she was able to work through it with me. And so, man, it's been a great experience. And so, if there's anybody out there who's looking to book Abdullah to come on a podcast, or even to have
Thank
him come
you.
out for a signing,
Thank you.
it's a very good experience, and you're a man of your word, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. So, okay, so this is at the end. I'll just say, if you made it this far,
Thank you.
subscribe.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And
Yeah.
to to all my fans, thank you for coming on your show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And make sure that you take care of your mother and father. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, thank you, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you.